Hello and welcome. We're doing something different today. As those of you who have subscribed or who keep popping back to my channel to see what's going on here know, I'm working through a deep dive series on the Watts family murders. And when that one's finished, we'll be deep diving into other high profile cases. However, there are so many stories out there that have just slipped through the cracks, that have been forgotten, and that are just as important as those stories that the true crime community just can't stop talking about. There are still families out there looking for justice, and it's incredibly important to me on this channel to make sure that everyone's given a voice, that no victim is forgotten or pushed to the side. In the wonderful world of YouTube and social media, there is a chance that a difference can be made, that bringing names back to the forefront of people's memories could trigger that one tip-off that brings a family closure and justice. Please stay with me for the stories of Kanika Powell and Sean Green. I'm Fiona, and this is Case Continued. She lived a life filled with purpose, pride and precision, a military veteran, a national security contractor, a daughter, a friend, a woman with her entire future ahead of her. But on a warm August morning in 2008, her life was stolen in a brutal, calculated attack. He also lived a life filled with purpose, pride and precision. He was also a national security contractor, a son, a brother, an uncle, a friend, a man with his entire future ahead of him. But on a November evening in 2008, his life was stolen in a brutal, calculated attack. And today, almost 2 decades later, both of these cases remain unsolved, forgotten by the public, left cold by investigators, and shrouded in unsettling mystery. This is a story of Kanika Powell and Sean Green, not just murder mysteries, but stories about how justice can slip through the cracks. Kanika Powell was born on the 31st of January 1980. From the very beginning, she was full of energy, sharp, outgoing, and never afraid to speak her mind. Her mother, Judy, often recalls how bold and spirited Kanika was as a child, always up for a challenge, always determined to prove herself. After graduating from Largo High School in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, Kanika stunned her family with a decision that no one saw coming. She enlisted in the US Army. Now, no one knows exactly what compelled her. There was no long military tradition in the family, but when Kanika made up her mind, she followed through. In the year 2000, she signed her name on the dotted line and put on the uniform. Kanika served several years in Korea, forming lifelong friendships and learning how to operate in environments where precision and caution were more than just professional expectations. They were survival tools. Through it all, she remained grounded, keeping in touch with her mother and her loved ones back home. By 2004, Kanika had completed her service and she returned home to Prince George's County. She transitioned from the battlefield to another kind of mission. She secured a role at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory in Laurel. The nature of her job was, and still is, classified. The laboratory is known for handling cutting-edge technology and national defence initiatives. Kanika was exactly where she wanted to be. Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, or APL, conducts research and development in various fields, including space science, national security, and advanced technologies. They design, develop, and integrate complex systems for various applications, including air and missile defence, naval warfare, and space exploration. APL focuses on national security in areas like air and missile defence and cyber security. They contribute to space exploration through the development of instruments, spacecraft, and technologies for missions to other planets. They research and develop new materials for extreme environments, such as those found in space or deep sea, and a number of other things. Whatever Kanika was doing, it wasn't just paperwork. It was her dream job, her mother said. She was so proud. For Kanika, this wasn't just a job. It was a purpose. She had earned her place in a field dominated by secrecy, protocol, and high stakes. But in the summer of 2008, strange things began to happen. It started on Saturday, the 23rd of August. At around 7 p.m, someone knocked on Kanika's apartment door. Through the peephole, she saw a man she didn't recognise. When she asked who he was, he said he was from the FBI and he was looking for her by name. But Kanika wasn't convinced. He was wearing civilian clothes, including a warm jacket, in August. He had no ID, no name, just a badge he briefly flashed, without a photo, and vague talk of an investigation. Kanika refused to open the door. As soon as he left, she picked up the phone. First, she called the real FBI. They hadn't sent anyone. Then she called her mother. She said, "Ma, this man just came to my door. He claimed he was FBI. I don't believe him." She was shaken, and she was right to be. Kanika just didn't call her family. She emailed friends. She wrote, "I just wanted to share with you the scariest thing that happened to me this weekend. Saturday evening around 7 p.m, a man was knocking at my door. As all of you may know, I live alone. I asked who it was, and he didn't answer. So once I got close to the door and looked out of the peephole, I saw a male figure that was not familiar to me at all. I asked who he was, and all he stated was he was from the FBI and that he was looking for Kanika Powell. It freaked me out completely because this man knew my name. He held a shield up, but no picture ID, and he never gave his name. He told me he was looking for me in regards to an investigation. I told him that I had no idea as to what he was talking about and that he would need to show me documentation as well as a warrant of some sort. So he left, and I looked out my bedroom window and saw him walking. I also heard a voice tell him to walk in the opposite direction. The whole situation was scary and seemed so false. So because of this incident, not only did I get no sleep for the rest of the weekend, but I am now trying to get an alarm system installed in my apartment. I had one in my old apartment, but I just hadn't transferred it over to my new one. As far as everything that happened with the guy, I did call the FBI, and they told me that it was more than likely bogus because they never come to your door by themselves and they always leave a card of some sort so that you can contact them. I called the local police as well to give them a description just in case someone is out there trying to rape or harm single women. Pass this on, ladies. This is not a fake forward. This happened to me, Kanika. Who knows who these guys are and what they were doing and in what areas other than mine. She warned her friends to be cautious, to protect themselves. She started arranging to install a home security system. She had called the police who came to investigate, but nobody was found in the area matching the description Kanika had given them. Kanika had served in the military. She'd seen real federal agents before. She knew this wasn't normal, and she had every reason to be afraid. 2 days later, Monday, the 25th of August, someone else came to her door. This time, it was a different man. He claimed he had a package for her. He was a parcel courier, but when questioned, he suddenly left and never came back. No card was left for Kanika to go and collect this mystery package herself. Then came Wednesday, the 27th of August. Yet another man, another so-called delivery. This wasn't Amazon. This wasn't FedEx. And Kanika knew it. Kanika called her mother early that morning and said, "Ma, who delivers packages at 7:30 in the morning?" Judy said she could hear the tension in her daughter's voice, but there was no way to know how serious the danger truly was. Kanika called the police again. Officers came quickly, but just like before, no suspects were found in the area. On the morning of August the 28th, 2008, Kanika stayed home from work. She had errands to run and had planned to leave town the next day. She stepped out that morning, hoping to handle her business early and be back home before dark. She never made it to the evening. At around 11:50 a.m, residents of her apartment complex heard gunfire. Multiple rounds. Someone had been waiting for her. When police arrived, they found Kanika in the hallway, shot several times, including in the head. Her car keys and wallet lay nearby, untouched. Nothing had been stolen. This was no robbery. She was still alive, barely, and was rushed to the hospital, but the damage was too great. Kanika Powell died the following day, the 29th of August, 2008. She was just 28 years old. The investigation began immediately, but it didn't go far. There was no forced entry, no sign of a break-in, no DNA, no murder weapon, just a body and a week-long campaign of fear that led to it. Police initially considered robbery, but everything valuable was still there. They asked, was this random? Was this a hit? Was someone stalking Kanika? Was it personal or was it professional? The official answers never came, but theories did. Some believed Kanika had stumbled onto something in her classified work, that she'd become a target, either by foreign agents or by someone who wanted her silenced. Others thought the whole thing was random. Maybe the man wanted to rob her and panicked. Or perhaps it was a serial offender. And then came the whispers about Jason Scott. Jason Thomas Scott was convicted of a series of home invasions and murders between 2008 and 2009. He was intelligent, technologically savvy, and he had access to private information through his job at UPS. Some pointed out that his crimes involved stalking, impersonation, and entering homes under false pretenses. Sound familiar? While the police linked him to at least 5 murders, they never formally tied him to Kanika's case. But many believe that the timeline, geography, and methodology overlap in chilling ways. But who really was he? Jason Scott Thomas was born in 1985 and raised in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. He didn't fit the mould of a typical serial killer, if there is such a thing. He was quiet, he was tech-savvy, and he went largely unnoticed. He worked for UPS and he had a background in computer science, a skill that he would later weaponize. He used his knowledge not just to steal, but to hunt. He was the kind of man who could pass you in the supermarket, deliver a package to your door, and then come back later that night to kill you. Scott wasn't driven by rage or chaos. He was driven by control, and his crimes reflected that. He used his position at UPS to access personal information, home addresses, delivery routes, schedules. Through hacking, surveillance, and good old-fashioned stalking, he picked his victims with precision. He often targeted single mothers or women with daughters. He'd learn when they were home, when they were alone, and then he'd strike. He broke in, disabled alarm systems, wore masks, carried weapons. In 2009, police began to connect a terrifying pattern. 2 pairs of mother and daughter victims were found murdered under similar circumstances. On the 26th of January 2009, in Prince George's County, an intruder neutralised the alarm system to Karen Lofton's home and crept inside. Karen, who was a 45-year-old nurse, was fatally shot as she tried to hide in a corner of the room. Her 16-year-old daughter, Carissa, was shot repeatedly as she dialed 911 from her bed. She told the operator she was bleeding to death and was declared deceased when officers arrived on scene. The police were confused. There were no signs of forced entry and the doors were locked. Neighbours in the area were utterly terrified. On the 16th of March, the bodies of Dolores DeWitt, also a nurse aged 42, and her 20-year-old daughter Ebony were found in the trunk of a burning car. The car, a Nissan Maxima, had been stolen that very day. A post-mortem examination revealed that both Dolores and Ebony had been strangled and died one day before the bodies were found. Dolores and her daughter lived within a mile of the Loftons. Police feared they were dealing with a serial killer operating freely across the suburbs of DC and Maryland. In July 2009, Scott's double life began to unravel. A tipster informed police that he was selling illegal firearms from his UPS truck. That led to a raid on his home and a stash house he maintained separately. Inside, investigators found stolen weapons, electronics and personal effects from victims, evidence from dozens of burglaries, and ultimately, forensic links to multiple homicides. They had their man. Scott was charged with a staggering list of crimes: burglary, illegal weapons possession, SA offences, arson, and multiple counts of murder. In federal court, he received 100 years in prison. Later, he was convicted again in state court, this time for murder, and received additional life sentences. Jason Thomas Scott will never walk free again, but some believe the full list of victims has never been told. Around the same time Jason Scott was active, Kanika Powell was shot outside her apartment in Prince George's County. She had reported the suspicious men impersonating delivery workers just days before she was murdered. Nothing was stolen, no forced entry, just a targeted killing. Scott, as we know, often posed as a delivery man. He had no connection to his victims. He used technology, improvisation, and access to strike. Could he have been involved in Kanika Powell's death? It's never been proven. Police have not publicly linked the two cases, but to many observers, the similarities are hard to ignore. Same area, same time frame, same MO. A young woman targeted, hunted, silenced. Investigators have long believed that Jason Scott may be responsible for more murders than the 5 for which he was charged. Some believe he may have killed as many as 10 or more victims, operating under the radar in neighbourhoods where people rarely lock their doors. Because his victims had no connection to him, it made detection incredibly difficult. And with arson destroying crime scenes, evidence often went up in literal smoke. Jason Thomas Scott was no ordinary serial killer. He didn't leave a trail of chaos. He left silence, smouldering ruins, families who never got answers, cases that never made the national news. He used his job to scout victims, his knowledge to dismantle their protection, and his cruelty to destroy their futures. He's now locked away, but the full truth of his crimes may still be out there. And for families like that of Kanika Powell, the question still remains: was Jason Thomas Scott the man who knocked on her door? In 2023, Unsolved podcast featured Kanika's case and presented new information. Previously, we had not known about any significant relationships Kanika had had. By all accounts, she lived a quiet, focused life. She was private, hard-working, and deeply respected by those who knew her. But in the weeks leading up to her murder, something changed. According to her best friend, Kanika had recently begun spending time with a new circle, friends that no one close to her had met. The reason, her friend revealed years later, was that Kanika had started dating a woman, and they were getting close, quickly. Kanika didn't hide her bisexuality, but she didn't advertise it either. She kept her personal life discreet, even from family. Both her mother and her best friend had briefly met the woman she was seeing, but neither knew much about her. After Kanika's murder, her inner circle began comparing notes, and that's when something unsettling surfaced. Kanika's new girlfriend, had an ex-boyfriend, a volatile one Kanika had met, and one who may have seen her as a threat. Jealous, controlling, and possibly dangerous. While this man was never officially named a suspect, some believed he may have played a role in her death, either directly or by putting someone else up to it. The timeline supports this theory because Kanika was scheduled to leave the day after her murder on a trip to Atlanta, a weekend getaway to attend a Pride festival with her new girlfriend. The visits to Kanika's apartment increased rapidly in the days before. First, the alleged FBI agent, then the so-called package delivery, and another just hours before she died. It's almost as if someone knew that the clock was running out and wanted to stop her from leaving town. Kanika later told her mother that after work she kept finding cigarette butts in the hallway outside her door. The same brand, left in the same spot, like someone had been waiting there. She had no idea who would want to harm her. In calls to her mother and her best friend, she kept saying, "I haven't done anything to anyone." Maybe that was true, but to someone else, jealous, angry, watching from the shadows, that didn't matter. Her mother and best friend offered to let her stay with them. Kanika said she'd be okay. She was strong-willed and fiercely independent. Her mother and friend still carry that guilt to this day. And perhaps the most disturbing detail of all, after Kanika was killed, that new group of friends disappeared. None of them came to the funeral. None of them reached out. It was as if they had all vanished completely. Kanika deserved better. She served her country. She was a protector. She was destined for great things, and in the blink of an eye, she was gone. Just months after Kanika's death, a young man, Sean Nicholas Green, was gunned down while sitting in his car at a red light. Like Kanika, Sean's job role was classified. Like Kanika, he was killed in Prince George's County. The similarities were difficult to miss, but still, police have never linked the two cases. Coincidence or something more? It happened in a flash. Sean Green didn't even have a chance to react. He didn't know he was being followed. He didn't know he was being watched. And when it was over, there was no robbery, no struggle, just silence. Another promise in life extinguished. So who was Sean Green? Why was he murdered in broad daylight during rush hour? And why does his death remain unsolved? Sean was 31 years old. He worked for BAE Systems and was a respected contractor for the National Counter-Terrorism Centre. Like Kanika, Sean worked in the world of national security, high clearance, highly sensitive, and very secretive. He was the kind of man who stayed under the radar. Friends described him as intelligent, quiet, and committed to his work. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't involved in anything criminal. He had a clean record, a good job, and no known enemies. He was close to his family and he adored his 8 nephews. He was a good man with a good heart. But someone out there wanted him dead. And they didn't just want him dead, they wanted it done fast, clean, and without any fuss. On the evening of the 12th of November 2008, just a few months after Kanika Powell's murder, Sean was driving home. At a red light on Capitol Beltway near Oxon Hill at rush hour, a masked gunman pulled up next to him in a separate vehicle. In broad daylight, in the middle of traffic, the gunman opened fire. Witnesses reported multiple shots fired directly into Sean's vehicle. He was hit 9 times and died at the scene. The shooter? Gone. No confrontation. No attempted theft. Nothing to suggest road rage or random violence. This was an execution. Police arrived quickly, but the scene told them very little. Sean hadn't been robbed, there was no known motive, and he had no criminal ties, no feuds, no signs of being involved in anything illicit. The vehicle used in the shooting was never located, No suspect was ever named publicly, and no arrest has ever been made. His murder remains officially unsolved. To many in the community, and especially among online sleuths, the similarities between Shaun Green's death and Kanika Powell's were too stark to just ignore. Both were young African American professionals. Both held sensitive jobs tied to national security. Both were murdered in Prince George's County, just 30 minutes apart in terms of location. Both were shot multiple times with no signs of robbery or personal conflict. Both had top-level security clearances and worked in federal defence and intelligence roles. And both were killed in what looked like premeditated hits. Were these just coincidences, or were they part of something darker, something coordinated? With little to go on from police, many began asking their own questions. Both Shaun and Kanika were believed to be working with classified materials. Could one or both have come across something they weren't supposed to see? Some believe that they may have uncovered something inside their respective agencies, something that someone powerful didn't want known. But without access to their files, without public transparency, there's no way to confirm or rule out this theory. The nature of the shooting, the timing, the location, the precision has led some to speculate that Shaun was the victim of a professional hit, not a random street crime, not a jilted lover, not a robbery gone wrong. A message, perhaps, or a cover-up. Despite the high-profile nature of Shaun's job, his case received minimal media coverage. There were no major press conferences, no FBI task forces announced, no serious public pressure. His name faded from the headlines within weeks. It's almost as if someone wanted people to forget. And they did. Today, few people even know his name, but his family remembers. His friends remember. And some of us are still asking why. Shaun Green deserved better. He served his country, he worked in national security, and he lived a quiet life. Yet he was gunned down in what appears to be a deliberate, calculated attack. And there are still no answers. We don't know if his murder was connected to his work. We don't know if it had anything to do with Kanika Powell's. But we do know this. Two brilliant minds, both tied to national security, both shot dead in the same area, just months apart, and neither case has been solved. That's not just a mystery, that's a failure, and someone, somewhere, still knows the truth. Now let's break down some of the leading theories about why Kanika and Shaun's work might have put them at risk. Some believe Kanika was being tested, possibly by her own agency or a subcontractor's internal security arm. Fake visits from FBI agents could have been a way to assess her loyalty or behaviour under pressure. But if that was true, who authorised it? And why didn't it stop before it turned deadly? Kanika or Shaun may have stumbled upon something they weren't supposed to see. Contract fraud, illegal surveillance, maybe even domestic intelligence operations. They may have confided in someone or, worse, filed internal complaints. In the world of government contracting, especially involving defence or intelligence systems, whistleblowers are often stonewalled, isolated or discredited. But in the worst cases, are they removed entirely? The proximity of Fort Meade, home to the NSA, and the nature of Shaun and Kanika's work makes it possible that either one of them was targeted by a foreign intelligence service. Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea have long targeted American defence workers for recruitment or elimination. If either Kanika or Shaun was suspected of being involved in or resisting such activity, their deaths could have been the brutal end to a failed operation. Some researchers suggest that contractors like APL and BAE sometimes used to offload black budget projects, operations so sensitive that they're denied even within official channels. These could include psychological testing, human monitoring programs, or surveillance systems that actually violate US laws. If either Kanika or Sean became aware of the true nature of the work they were involved in, or refused to cooperate, it could explain the precision, the silence, and the aftermath. There are so many details left out of these cases. Why would Kanika, a security specialist, live somewhere unsecure? She said she had an alarm system at her previous property, but not one at the apartment she was living in on Merrill Lane. Why? When looking at the serial killer theory, is a serial killer going to knock on somebody's door several times? Would they target somebody affiliated with a government agency? Who would use FBI as a ploy? Unless you're familiar with Kanika being a government employee. Had Sean noticed anything in the days or weeks before his murder that seemed out of place? Anything at all, no matter how small, that he might have said to friends or family members? We just don't know. We don't have that information. What we do know is the killer wanted Kanika and Sean dead way too bad. What's perhaps most disturbing is how little noise these two murders made in official Washington. There were no major investigations by the Department of Defense. The FBI never took control of either case, despite the obvious potential connections to federal security clearance and contractor risk. There was no real acknowledgement from Johns Hopkins, APL. No statement from BAE Systems. In the shadow world of defence and intelligence, silence isn't just standard, it's enforced. It's been almost 17 years. Still no arrests. Still no answers. Still no justice for two lives that, by all appearances, were erased with precision and without accountability. Whether Kanika Powell and Sean Green were killed for what they knew, what they refused to do, or what they discovered, one thing is clear. The system that they worked for has not come forward to defend them. Which leads to the final question. In a world of secrets, surveillance, and subcontractors, how many more names are out there, buried beneath clearance levels, red tape, and silence? Someone out there knows something, and it's time to speak. If you found this story important, please share it. Don't let their names be forgotten. Comment below if you've heard of these cases, and let me know your thoughts and theories. Speak up if you know of similar stories that deserve attention, and subscribe for more videos like this one, and help us bring light to the cases that time tried to erase. If you have information about the murders of Kanika Powell and Sean Green, please call the Prince George's County Crime Solvers tip line or the Prince George's County Police Department using the numbers on the screen and in the description. I'll see you all in the next video. In the meantime, stay curious, stay kind, and take care of yourselves. I've been Fiona, and this has been Case Continued.